I'm joined today by Brian Manowitz, known to those who know him as the vegan black metal chef. Brian, let's start with the sort of simplest question first. How long have you been vegan and why?
Well, greetings, listeners of the David Pakman Show and watchers. I've been vegan for about 15 or so years, and the fast answer I tell people is I don't believe in the exploitation of animals.
And talk about what that means to you in terms of veganism, vegetarianism, etc. Is there any scenario in which animal products are consumed that wouldn't be exploitation to you? Or is any consumption of animal products whatsoever exploitative in your mind?
Well, I believe as we were talking earlier, quite some time ago, I believe you had mentioned something like if someone was if it was some native tribe somewhere that was living just off the land and something like that, would that be considered exploitation of animals? And to that I say no. If it was some any of the very few still existing native tribes that just live off the land, I'm not talking to them. Quite honestly, I'm just talking to the citied world that, and especially sort of the first world, of which I'm not sure if the U.S. is a part of anymore or not, but mostly the citied world, and and even sort of rural city world. But yeah, but the people in what we would consider relatively normal circumstances.
So it sounds like, if I understand correctly, part of whether animal consumption, either of animal meat or animal products, whether it's exploitative in your mind, depends on sort of the life situation of those who might be consuming the animals in terms of the alternatives they have. Am I understanding that?
Yeah, in one sense, yes. I mean, you can only take the ivory tower so far, in the sense that that at some point, really the basics of veganism is these animals that we consume and that we use are living their life in utter hell, basically for our benefit, which is not needed. And so that's really the bottom line of everything, is we want to cut out that whole these animals living in utter hell, and the best part of their life is their death. So there might be some fringe circumstances about this or that, but it's really not important in the big scheme of things.
I'm curious, though, if you hold that or believe that, taking an animal that didn't necessarily choose to be born, it also certainly didn't choose to be used for food or for its products to be taken by humans for consumption. And you say, well, in the city, it's exploitative to do this to the animal, but in a rural place, it isn't. It might be hard for some people to sort of understand, if you believe that morally, if the animal doesn't have a say in the matter, it's exploitation. Why is it not exploitation merely because humans might be living in an area where they have fewer alternatives? I'm trying to understand the sort of consistency of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when I say rural, I don't honestly mean like rural America. Rural
No, I get
America
it. I
is,
get it.
yeah, it's still quite. I'm talking about if you're some kind of native tribe, if you're
Yeah.
an Eskimo, there's zero vegetation around, then and that's what you live off the land. Then yeah, if that's what you absolutely have to do to survive, then yeah, I don't have a problem with it, because ultimately there's sort of two sides of it. There's sort of the moral side, which is sort of what I'm talking about here, and then there's also the ultimate the relative sense, in that morals have moral actions have consequences, and the ultimate sense in that there essentially are no morals. So in the ultimate sense, that's what I'm talking about with these native tribes, is that there really is no moral aspect here. They're doing what they need to do to survive, just like the rest of nature. They're living in nature.
I'm
In so,
curious though. I'm curious though, because if you go back before the agricultural revolution, for example, where humans said, hey, you know what, instead of sort of being nomadic and having a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, we're going to settle down here and grow and depend on wheat or whatever it is. Prior to that, when humans were nomadic and sort of hunter-gatherers, they their meat consumption in many cases was mostly the leftover animals that some larger, stronger predator had killed. And otherwise, they were mostly eating berries and what could be found naturally, right? Plants, vegetables, etc. So is it even a good argument to say that you make exceptions now for those who are in these native areas when even when we go back pre-agricultural revolution, excuse me, we still had a lot of humans that were able to get by without certainly killing meat, if not eating it at all. Doesn't it sound a little bit strange to make the argument out of necessity now when we have examples of non-meat eaters from so long ago?
Well, here's the thing. It doesn't even cross my mind because it doesn't even matter. Like, we're talking about so few people and such a nothing in the grand scheme of things that it's totally off the point. It literally doesn't matter. In terms of all the other benefits of veganism to the planet, to society, and everything else, those fringe cases don't matter.
They don't matter to you anyway.
Yeah, they don't matter to me.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
It's complete that completely misses the point of the greater aspect of it.
Okay, a couple other things I want to touch on with you. Number one, you talked about the sort of environmental benefit of veganism. In my research, it seems the real environmental benefit is in the reduction of meat consumption, particularly red meat and a few other specific types of meat. Do you agree that in terms of health, there's no evidence that veganism versus, for example, the Mediterranean diet, which limits meat consumption, is healthier? There, in all the research I've done, there's no truly extensive, all-encompassing study that says that a vegan diet is healthier.
Yeah, well, for one, I've not done extensive research on. I've not read every study on PubMed about health benefits or not health benefits with the vegan diet. Quite honestly, I don't think that many studies have been done on the vegan diet, especially very large scale studies like things with like the Mediterranean diet. In terms of what's the greatest benefit for the planet, was that what you said before?
Yeah, well, no, I was just sort of seeing if we were on the same page, that there's no doubt that reducing meat consumption is good environmentally, but that in terms of human health, there's no evidence that says veganism is the healthiest diet.
Well, healthiest is kind of, well, like to me, health is kind of a continuum. It's not this is healthy versus this is unhealthy.
Right.
It's more like is healthier than this, is healthier than that. I mean, I guess you could probably say that a raw fruit or vegetable might be considered maybe the healthiest thing. But again, that's still a little bit arbitrary because there's different circumstances.
Sure.
But even regardless, though, quite honestly, I don't cite studies in my thing in any of my things that I write or things that I talk about, even though I have a science background. I studied behavioral neuroscience in school.
Yeah.
And worked in a research lab, and we discussed papers around the lab table all the time. And I'm peer-reviewed journals and everything. And I think science is great. I think science has an absolute place. However, I don't talk about it in the grand scheme of things because, for one, anything that requires a statistical analysis to show whether something is more probable or less probable, or essentially whether they're saying this is correct or this is not correct, quite honestly has a tendency to go back and forth throughout the ages.
Sure.
So I'm not even going to go there. What I'm going to go for is what is obvious and what can be shown with no statistical studies whatsoever. It's obvious that animals require much more food that you put into them than you get out of them.
Right.
That's just obvious. That doesn't require a paper, doesn't require a study. You have to feed animals, and especially in our case with factory farms, corn and soybeans and even alfalfa, that requires tremendous amount more resources going into it, be it the actual food that we could be feeding people, be it water that is used for the agriculture and for all the steps involved, the fuel for all the transportation steps involved. There's a whole lot of waste in all these intermediary steps, and that doesn't require any kind of paper or study. That's just obvious. You can see that there is waste, and you're getting far less out than what you're putting in.
How far should this be taken with regard to even vegetables, right? I mean, there are vegetables like avocado, which also require disproportionately more water for the nutrients that you get out compared to other particular vegetables. I mean, should the environmental argument even be applied within vegetables? Like, should we get rid of or go away from the vegetables that require more water per nutrient density?
Well, here's the thing. If you got rid of the meat in general, the water wouldn't even be a question because there'd just be enough water.
Fair enough. Okay, let me ask you something about a trend now in veganism that I've been reading about. This is the bivalve veganism, which is the idea that bivalves, right, clams, mussels, mollusks, scallops, etc., they're certainly animals to some extent, but the idea that they're not sentient in any way. And thus, I've increasingly been reading about vegans who say, I'm vegan, but I eat specifically bivalves. I don't eat fish, I don't eat octopus, but bivalves I feel morally okay eating in the same way that a vegetable is alive, but it is not sentient. Where are you on the bivalve debate?
Yeah, so actually I'd only first heard of this, I guess about a year or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even know this was a thing until then. Here's where I'm at. First of all, this is mostly for people that live in the ivory tower. Like again, this is this philosophy. If we just get rid of animal exploitation at the root, then this is not even a question. Well, first of all, bivalves and mollusks and things, they have nerve ganglion. Whether or not you consider those formal brains, I mean, our bodies have nerve ganglion that do lots of subconscious computations for our brain, and they're basically like mini brains. So
you reject the idea that bivalves aren't sentient in some sense.
I think it's even ridiculous to talk about, and
wow.
And yeah, like if I can't believe people are focusing on that as opposed to just getting rid of the exploitation of animals in general.
Well, I guess the question is, are you exploiting a mussel if you determine that it may be no more sentient than a plant, right? If you believe that, then are you really exploiting it?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is where if you focus on fringe cases, the ivory tower breaks down. Like the pure theory. If you want to just go by pure theory of it, then who knows? Quite honestly, pain is an internal phenomenon, anyways. You can't really know whether anything experiences pain.
Well, yeah, kind of. But I mean, I think that's a sort of dangerous path to go down because science does know a lot about pain, right? I mean, I think it would be, I don't know that it's a good argument to say we can't even really know because then maybe plants feel pain and we shouldn't be exploiting plants.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, but what I'm saying is if you take that argument of well, I don't think it's any more sentient. Why not? I mean, it has nerves. It has nerve ganglion. Why is it like sentience? Of course, is a degree, and again, it's like if we just cut out animal exploitation at the root, that's the core of veganism.
Yeah.
Not weird fringe things.
Hey, do you eat honey?
I do not.
You do not eat honey. All right. Well, do you believe the bees are exploited if we empty the honeycomb?
I do. I think we should leave honey for the bees and leave them well enough alone.
All right. Brian Manowitz, the most hardcore vegan we've ever had on the show, that's for sure. Known to many as the vegan black metal chef. Check him out on YouTube. Google him. Brian, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.